Through the mist we rise, a force unbroken, with banners high and hearts awoken. The sound of pipes, our war is calling. Like thunderous waves, our duty is falling. Stand tall, together we fight, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity our hearts shall sing the legacy of warriors through every reign. With battle cries we forge our fate, in fields of valor we elevate. As shadows loom, our spirits gleam. Brothers in arms, we are the dream. Fearless, we take the night, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity, our hearts shall sing the legacy of warriors through every reign. As dawn breaks, we know our name.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first time that we're going to have the Wicked Wildlife Encounters podcast. This is a first of its kind, and we are going to discuss the Japan bear attacks, and it's quite the subject matter. We're going to get into it. I have David Lester, my brother, backstage, waiting very patiently for me to get through the intro and everything. I want to get through the disclaimer, so let's get that out of the way. As always, I claim fair use of any and all content under the Copyright Act of 1976, which is the fair use. Okay. Furthermore, I wish to acknowledge that all the opinions and theories mentioned during the podcast are not necessarily the opinions or views of Nighthawk High Strangeness podcast channel and or aka William Nighthawk, myself. We at Nighthawk High Strangeness YouTube channel and Facebook channels merely bring the open format to discuss the possibilities of topics happening in the past, present, and future, and several other topics, by the way. Please join the Nighthawk High Strangeness YouTube channel by subscribing, and please hit that like button and hit that notification bell too on your way out. But definitely hit that like button if you can, please, to help us out with the algorithms. Join the chat family, be respectful, and put all questions in capital letters. Okay. Now, getting to the question part of the podcast. Please be patient with me, because StreamYard has changed up the format again. It's like the 6th time in the last month. Okay. So I'm going to be going back and forth to and from the chat. I'm going to unmute your mic, David. So I also want to discuss real quick. I want to talk about a young man who lives in New York City, by the way. And don't be a hater. Just because he lives in New York City doesn't mean he's a bad person, okay? So he is a retired cop, okay? And he has his own YouTube channel. His name is Nate, okay? And his YouTube channel is Nate the Lawyer, okay? And he has recently discovered that he has a brain tumor. Now, those of you that know me know that I'm very passionate at fighting cancers missing people phenomena, and I'm very patriotic, and I believe that that putting out a prayer request for this gentleman would be the best thing to do. In this case, I know what it's like having to fight through it. Okay, and continuing fighting, and not having really other than immediate family around you, not having a real support network. That being said, you guys in the chat have been phenomenal. You always are. I appreciate you all very much. So, but yeah, if we can, let's keep Nate in our prayers. Check out his YouTube channel. Give him, it's called Nate the Lawyer. He's on YouTube. Okay, and he's, like I said, he's a retired police officer, and he's just going through a tough time. So if you can give him some words of encouragement, tell him Nighthawk sent you from Nighthawk High Strange's YouTube channel, and get the word out, the prayer request out to everybody if you can, please. Okay. That being said, our subject matter tonight is going to be quite interesting, folks. I honestly, I never really had a run-in when I was in Japan in the military, way back in the Stone Age, with bears. But we are going to discuss tonight, one of the topics we're going to discuss tonight is the Japan bear attacks. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody realizes the size of Japan. Japan is actually smaller than the entire state of California. And for the number of bear attacks and fatalities this year alone in 2025, it is really astronomical, to say the least. Okay. And I'll be getting to the chat here in a second. But the state of California is roughly like 163,000 square miles. Okay. That's a rough estimate. Okay. Japan is roughly about 146,000 square miles. So they're fairly close in size. So when we're dealing with Japan, you got to keep in mind the size of it. Okay. I mean, how many fatal bear attacks do you hear about in California? That's the one thing. The most recent major bear attack in Japan happened November 13th. That was documented on November 13th, 2025, when a bear entered a supermarket in Akita and basically attacked a male employee. Okay. And there have been a record number of 196 recorded bear. This is just recorded bear attacks, resulting in 13 casualties. And we're not talking some little Yogi bear or Boo Boo bear that's, a black bear and, a couple 100 pounds. We're talking a brown bear. We're talking brown bears equivalent to the brown bears in Russia. Okay. And in China. Okay. And we're talking a bear that is fully capable of unaliving a human with just the swat of its paw. So that being said, I'm going to let David go ahead and take over, and I'm going to get to the chat and let him explain a little bit more.
Jump in here anytime.
So if you would, David, introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Well, I've been on here a few times before, but just a real quick little bit about my background. I retired from the military back in 98, spent 3 Navy, 18 Army for 21 years. And then I retired from the sheriff's office, a local sheriff's office here in Virginia in 1998. So I got 2 careers down. Now I sit at home while Melissa works. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. But oddly enough, the 3 years I spent in the Navy, I was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan, with the 6th Fleet over there. What's it, the 7th? It's been too long. The USS Midway, which has been decommissioned, but I was on a combat store ship, which was part of the fleet. I knew there was a bear in Japan too, but I didn't hunt back in. My hunting days pretty much ended when I went to the military. All my hunting now is done behind camera. Um,
Right.
but there's actually two types of bear in Japan. You got the Asiatic bear, and then you got the brown bear. Asiatic bear is the smaller of the two. Uh, Asiatic bear is pretty much in the mid-central part of it, so on. But the brown bear, which is the largest of the two, is pretty much in the northern part of Japan. The largest recorded species of the brown bear was 880 pounds back in 2015. That's a big bear.
That is a big bear.
Yeah. The Asiatic black bear weighs about 660 pounds and small because they're the smaller of the two. I didn't even think any more about the bears in Japan until it started coming on the news about all these attacks coming up. So I got to look into it a little bit more to see what might have been behind them, so on and so forth. We do know the ministry over there has apparently gotten the military involved, the Japanese military, to go in and cull some of them, maybe relocate because the population has probably gotten too big. Most of the encounters is up in the rural areas of Japan, from what I've seen. And a lot of the rural areas, for some reason, I don't know a lot about the economics of Japan, but there's fewer people living in the rural areas than there are in the bigger cities now. And
Right.
to say that might be a contributing factor to where the bears are starting to move into the rural areas, because just like here in the States, if you're not careful, bears associate people for food.
Yeah. Well, just look at what happened in New Jersey. What was it?
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, with the black bear population exploding going into the cities of New Jersey. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, wherever you have the potential possibility of bear species coming in for food, you're going to have problems. Go ahead, David.
Just this year alone, not counting the attacks, but the State Department issued a warning out to tourists going over, citizens going over to Japan, to be aware of the encounters that's been going on. Just this year alone, there's been over 20,000 sightings. 20,000 in an area that's a little bit smaller than California. That's a lot of sightings. So to me, that's a lot of bear. Now, yeah, a lot of them could be repeats, when they go out hiking and they go out sightseeing in these rural areas. But it looks like they do have a problem there in Japan when it comes to bears. The ministry is getting involved in that to try to come to some way to try to rectify it and bring those numbers down. One thing I didn't know about Japan, the culture over there from the past, they revered the bear. How can I put it? I do have a few notes here. Well, there's a culture there. They're broken down into segments too. It's called the Anu, and they have rituals that date back. I don't know exactly how far they go, but they looked at the bear as the god of gods, is what it basically boiled down to, and they hold rituals and stuff based on it. The indigenous people, and they're northern Japan, they revered the bears. Bears were providers of food, fur, and bone for tools. They hunted them, kept them as pets, performed exorcisms involving bear spirits. Now, I don't know much about that. You might be able to give more insight on that, William, as far as exercising involving bear spirits.
It's basically, they're basically talking about exercising almost like it's a ritual that they would do, that they would have the holy people do there in Japan. And I don't know the exact way it's done, but it's basically just like expelling a dark energy from a region, and calling for protection for the people. That's my understanding of it, which is kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of like along the lines of like a demonic possession, incident with a priest coming in and exorcising the demon from the person. the same thing that Native people do with trickster spirits and other, dark entities in their beliefs too. So,
Yeah, yeah. They with the, I think I'm pronouncing it right, with the Anu culture, northern Japanese people in northern Japan back in the day. And apparently, this still goes on today, from what I gather. They hunted them, kept them as pets, performed exorcisms involving bear spirits, like I mentioned. Sometimes bear cubs were caught and nursed by women. The bear supplied fur and meat and brought gifts from the deities and was regarded as the important mountain god in disguise. And like a lot of cultures, like over in Asia, some cultures, they worship the cow. It goes on, around the world. They have certain entities that they're going to worship for whatever reasons.
Yeah. Well, it's just like how we call the indigenous people here in America call the bear the first medicine person. And that's where we learned a lot of our medicine practices was from the bear.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just taught me something there. The important one, and Anu Rite was called the Alumati. I may not be pronouncing that right, or the bear sending ritual conducted in springtime. And it was essentially a funeral rite for the most important Anu deity. It was intended to give the bear and mountain god spirit a proper send-off before return to the mountains. The female bear and her cubs were caught. The bear was killed, and her spirit was sent to the gods in a special ceremony. Her cubs were then raised by the Anu for several years, and they too were returned to the gods. I assume by that reading, they killed them at that time too. It's just amazing that when you get into different cultures and how they idolize different animals, and there may be things behind it. I mean, I just don't think people think these things up just to have something to do. Something could have transformed them back then, transpired back then, to give them the inclination that there's something more going on than it just being the animal that's before them. And there's a Matagi hunters. It's a traditional Japanese Matagi hunters also held deep spiritual respect for bears. They were another culture in Japan besides the Anu, the Matagi. They both looked at them as deities and divine messengers. In Japanese folklore and Shinto beliefs, bears are often seen as mountain gods or spirits for the indigenous Anu people of Hokkaido. The bear called Kamui is considered the head of the gods, a divine being that visits the human world with gifts of meat and fur. And it may just be on that pretense alone, since they help give nutrition to the people, they rever them in that way with that possibility. If then again, it may be some other things going on that we don't know, like you have in a lot of other cultures. As far as the attacks go, some of the attacks have been more characterized more of a predatory and sustained ferocity than is typically seen, with some bears striking victims for days and attacking with unusual determination. So that makes you wonder if.
Hey, David, let me address something. I see Jonaside and everybody in the chat is talking about the two streams. This is something that StreamYard has done for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess they got a lot of complaints about people being on cell phones and having the landscape format for YouTube and not being able to fit everything in a screen. So what they did, they got with Google and YouTube and StreamYard, all got their heads together and figured it'd be a great idea to have one stream for your cell phone, for your smartphone, and another for your TV or computer. Okay, so you have to determine which one you're using. If you're using your cell phone, you're better off going to the cell phone stream so you can get the entire view on your phone, okay, from the podcast. Otherwise, just stick with the landscape stream. If you're using a cell phone, I believe it's going to have a little, like Stuart has a little signal next to his name in the chat. and I believe who else did too. Let me see here. Somebody else. Urso has it too. Okay, so yeah, they just changed that not more than 2 weeks ago. And it's a pain in the butt because there's really no way on to tell the difference. It's not like YouTube is going to tell people that are tuning in that, hey, this is what you got to watch if you're on a smartphone. It's up to the people to figure it out, which is ridiculous. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. Okay. It's not the fact that it's going, it's the same podcast. It's just two different devices. Okay. You have a smartphone screen, and then you have a landscape screen for a computer, laptop, TV, or whatever. Okay. So yeah, Jonaside, I agree. StreamYard is going downhill lately. I agree. Anyways, I just wanted to clear that up for everybody.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you, but your picture's froze.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sign out and jump back on real quick. Stand by.
That's fine. That's fine. Anyways, oh God, don't look at me, please. It's really something when you consider the size of Japan to California, and you think about the number of attacks, and the number of fatalities, and the military is doing everything in their power, to basically get it under control. I'm gonna pop something up on a screen so you all can see while we wait for David to come back in. Let's see, Japan's response. This I'll pop up so you guys can read it too. I'm not sure if I can read it because it's real small. Military deployment. The Japanese military has deployed to help local hunters set traps and reduce the bear population in affected areas. Emergency measures. Authorities are calling for more decisive action against problem bears that have lost their fear of human settlements. Let's get David back in here. There we go, brother. You're back.
Good. Okay.
All right.
So
temporary solutions. The military deployed is seen, on a temporary fix for a problem that requires a long-term solution to manage the growing bear population and address the root causes such as climate change and rural depopulation. Just interesting, really interesting. I'm putting these up just so everybody else can have a chance to read them over. I can't even begin to read that. That is too small for me, even on a screen. But I'll pop these up real briefly for everybody to take a look at.
Yeah, they're talking about rural depopulation, impact on humans, rural populations, and growing bear population. What I find fascinating is, the bears have always been there. And, they're originally from Japan and Russia, roughly about 500,000 years ago, when some of the land was connected before some of the sea took over and isolated everything. So they've been there for at least 500,000 years. But the recent Japanese bear attacks are considered unusual due to their frequency, ferocity, and atypical locations. More predatory and sustained ferocity than is typically seen. If they've always been there, regardless of the population, why is all of this happening now? It's like somebody hit a switch and now they're running into problems. Could it be climate change? Japan's having climate problems over there too, like everybody else in the world. But I can't see climate change itself being sole entity and changing a bear's behavior, or any other animal for that means, unless they just don't have nowhere else to go.
Another thing too to consider too into that too, David, is the fact of the chemical disbursement of nuclear power plants, of chemical plants, manufacturing industry. Because when you're dealing with such a small land mass, I mean, it's not the size of the United States. You know, we have places where that stuff is stored. Nuclear waste is stored and buried in the ground and locked within containment walls and basically a Fort Knox for that type of stuff. We don't know what their regulations are there in Japan if they are having private companies divert around the legality of illegal dumping and stuff. That could be a contributing factor to wildlife, being more aggressive. That and the fact that you never know. The prey that the bears usually have, could be dying off too. We know that the fishing industry was decimated by the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that power plant was located. I should have researched that before I come on there, but I don't know if that was in northern Japan, southern, middle, or what the case may be. But again, it's like somebody hit a switch. I mean, that nuclear power plant that they had problems with, that was years ago. Mm-hmm. Granted, some things take time to accumulate and to get to a certain stage to where it could trigger certain things. But it seems to me like they would have seen that coming instead of all of a sudden now they're having problems with the bear. I may be out in left field somewhere. I mean, I can't answer that, but I can only the 3 years I spent in Japan. Well, we were stationed there. We spent a lot of time at sea traveling to Westpac when I was in the Navy my first 3 years. During that time frame, in the early in late 70s, Japan was a very clean nation. You didn't see trash or nothing anywhere. Now, I can't speak about today because we're talking, I don't want to say how many years ago now from the 70s. But things could have changed now when you come to talking about the chemicals, the pollution, and so on and so forth. But I still can't wrap my brain around the Japanese people doing that.
Right.
Because they were, and they may still be such a clean person, clean nation. They kept everything pretty much spotless, unless they're like a lot of other countries where the powers to be are doing things behind the scene that the general population doesn't see.
Yeah, that would be. I wouldn't even remotely begin to blame the Japanese people for doing it. I would say it's more of a corporate greed type of a thing.
Very well could be.
If anything. Or even possibly governmental, hiding, certain activities. So I would not put it on the people at all of Japan. The people of Japan are the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, I loved it there.
Yeah. So very peaceful place to exist and coexist with others. Very much so. So yeah, I wouldn't put that burden of blame on the people at all in Japan at all. So, but
with some of these rituals that some of these Japanese people do, with like the Anu, they still practice those rituals today, except for killing the bear. They still do all the other rituals. They also have the Anakuma bear. Demon bear is what they call it. I may not be pronouncing it right. Anaku. Sometimes you got to roll your tongue with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Akakuma. Okay, I may be pronouncing wrong. They call the demon bear. They have many traditional tales about that, where the bear can become. It's a massive bear with supernatural strength. It's just amazing that you get the history and culture of people and how they live their life, and everything was fine back then. But now all of a sudden, it's just like something hit a switch.
Yeah,
and now they're having a problem.
Let me ask you this: Do you think, David, that maybe and I know we probably haven't discussed this at all with the wildlife, the way it's been acting. But it's not just land wildlife that's acting out, it's ocean wildlife also that's acting out. In fact, we got another show planned 2 weeks from today, guys, on all the unusual ocean activity. So watch for that one too. The second Wicked Wildlife Encounters podcast, which is the ocean attacks.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to have that too, because a lot of dynamics are changing.
Yeah, and I was thinking, what about the Schumann resonance? You know, they're talking about the Schumann frequency a lot. They're talking about the polar shift a lot,
I was going to
and
mention
they're
that.
also talking about this solar flares and stuff that are like category class 4s coming and literally causing mental fatigue on humanity and other physical problems. So maybe this is affecting the wildlife too. What do you think about that?
Well, it could be more research needs to be done on the aspect. Because now that you mentioned that, I remember seeing that one was it 2015. I got to go back and look at the year where they had a rise in unusual animal behavior and bear attacks too, which almost equal to what they're having now. Then it died down. Now it's back. I remember seeing that, and what I mean by researching that to see if they were having unusual solar activity during that time frame.
Right.
I wouldn't go to anything as far as climate change at this point, because all that's been recently, whether it's natural or controlled climate.
Yeah. Yeah,
Stuff we've been
exactly. I agree with you there. I agree with you
Uh,
there, brother.
But it just seems unusual for all those years. It never was a problem. Now, again, I may be wrong on the year, but there was a year time frame. I'm thinking 2015 or 2005. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but there was a huge spike in bear attacks, and it was a few more or just a little less than what's happening now with this
Right.
spike.
Christopher brings up a good point here, David. This does go great with cryptid research because you think about it, there's a lot more aggressive activity happening with cryptid encounters. So,
Across the
and
whole
I'm not just
spectrum, yeah.
talking Sasquatch. Yeah, it's across the entire thing. Even humans are being adversely affected. So maybe it is something more along the lines of environmental, maybe solar related, or something being chemically engineered and put into the atmosphere. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe that's why we're seeing more of this cryptid activity too, on top of the natural wildlife that's out there that we know of that coexists with us usually peacefully. Maybe it's triggering something on them, like an on-off switch, like you said.
Yeah, but there's so many variables going on right now that you can't really put your finger on one thing. That's what's frustrating about it. Because you have the weather phenomena that's going on now, either or. It's either natural and or it's being controlled. You've got another. We had the solar activity that came about. It's I can't think of the word. There's you got CERN during their experiments. There's just so many things
Right.
going on right now. You cannot put your finger on one specific thing, and that's what's going to make it difficult to try to even come to a conclusion on what it could be, because people's going to default to a natural explanation of anything that happens.
Right, exactly. Now,
Food
this
shortage.
is another good point. Christopher, I appreciate Christopher being in the chat. Let me tell you, him and Urso have been discussing a lot. And it's true that they do cover up a lot of cryptid encounters with animal attacks. That's a given. In fact, just recently, I don't know, David, if you knew about this or not, since you're retired law enforcement, but today was put out in the sheriff's office here where I'm at, that not more than I could walk there in probably 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour at the most, because it's uphill. But Zep Mountain, Zep Mountain actually had a 73-year-old man, a hunter, go missing this morning. And I know for a fact that I have buddies up there that have reported to me of highly active cryptid encounters in that area. And I would love to have an investigation up in that area if it's at all possible. If I could coordinate somehow.
Is that the
So,
national forest? Is that on private property?
it would be a little bit of both, actually.
Mm. Well,
So-
a lot of strange things going on. But everybody wants to default and come up with natural explanations of what's going on. Yeah, some of it could be valid, you know, the scarcity of food, but then again, the scarcity of food could be environmental. Where are the people going they used to live in those rural areas?
Exactly.
I guess they could have migrated to the larger cities, possibility. Why do people have their beliefs back in the old days and stuff? What transpired back then to make them feel that way? People, and that one post I saw that you shared with the Native American girl that recently was found deceased. Why would she call 911 to say she was cold? To me, that does not make any sense. If she went, they'd say she went out. It was her birthday. What, she go by herself? Nobody said. Was she with other people? Nobody said. If bad weather, why did she go out alone? And you're telling me she was that far away from home, she couldn't get back if she was cold? That she had to call 911, which didn't respond according, you know, the way it should have. Something just don't seem right about that.
Yep.
Now, I'd love to hear
exactly.
that 911 call.
Yeah, and a lot of my research that I've done with the missing, especially the missing indigenous people, and I'm not just talking indigenous people in America, but I've also researched it in Canada. I've researched it in Mexico, South America, even parts of Asia. I've researched it, and Ireland, and you know, there's always. I've been finding the results that I've had throughout my years of investigating this and researching it, that there are certain criteria that are being met on missing people. And, you know, I didn't really want to get into this subject because I'm going to be doing a podcast about it here very soon. And I'll have you back on for that too, by the way, if you don't mind, with your investigative background. But, you know, it's something to be said that when you see a shift of people being reported as missing, as having German descent and bloodline, and not mentioning the indigenous aspect of it. It's almost like they're guiding you away from the actual criteria that these people are being abducted by whoever is doing it. And they're trying to it's like sending a rocket into space and telling you, oh, it's going to go to Mars, when in actuality it's going to land in the ocean 500 miles away that you can't see. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of a mentality. Look over here, but don't look here. And that's kind of what I got a feeling they're doing with the missing people thing.
Deflection.
That's why I got into it. Okay?
Yep.
And I literally got into it because it started to really piss me off, because nobody was telling the truth about a lot of this. And, you know, there's one guy that I admire, David, you know, you all know who I'm talking about, Missing 411, but even he has been roadblocked to find out the exact truths and the root cause of the missing people. Well, I negated the powers that be, and I went and I meddled in places I investigate. Okay, and I found out that about 80% of everybody that's abducted and is missing and permanently missing has some percentage of indigenous blood within their veins. 80% plus of those people have dark hair and dark eyes. Okay. Now this has nothing to do with the bear stuff, but that's the way I'm going with my investigation on the missing phenomena. Okay, and we'll be doing a podcast very very soon about that. Okay, God willing. Okay, so but let's continue with the whole bear thing. You know, as much as I admire the wildlife, especially the bear, because it is the Lakota belief is that the bear was our first medicine man. And we learned a lot from the bear, from observing what the bear does, how the bear treats its wounds and its illnesses and stuff, what barks to use, what trees to go to and plants to devour or to consume, what natural resources it eats on a regular basis to stay healthy. You know, what berries it eats. You know, we always observed all this because we looked at bear as being a guide to educating our people. And I've often, correlated that to the way Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, learned from the indigenous culture with making stick structures, okay, and how to leave trail markers that aren't that obvious. And some people do realize that, some of them are pretty obvious, but those are more of a, well, we'll get into that too sometime. But, the fact of the matter is you always learn from everything around you. And like you said previously with the bears in Japan, they're going to go where they have a food source, a viable food source. And if they've learned enough knowledge over time, they're going to realize that that food source is going to be with humans. And there ain't very far you can go in Japan to get away from the bear population.
No,
So,
not at all. Well, associating people with food, I mean, yeah, you're going to have that anywhere here in the States or anywhere like that. But again, in my mind, it doesn't explain why now all of a sudden this is happening all of a sudden. Normally, there should be telltale signs. You see an increase in frequency, it'll build up to a certain point. And when the authorities see something like that happening, they would normally intervene before it gets to the point that it is now. But whatever let it manifest up to this point to where all of a sudden you're having all these encounters, attacks, deaths from the attacks, but 20,000 alone this year already. To me, something doesn't seem right for all that to be taking place. I mean, I may be, like I said, maybe out left field, but you can't tell me nobody's seen this coming. I can't believe that. It'd be like us going out at Slate Lake doing our camping and stuff. And I have yet to see a bear out there. I know they're there. I mean, we see the prints and everything else out there. But how often do we see bears in areas where we go camping? Normally, they're afraid of people.
Exactly.
Now, again, you leave food out. If you're not around, they'll take the opportunity to come in and take the food if you're not around the area. But normally, if they smell a human, they don't even approach, because here, what I'm trying to say is, out where we camp, that's heavily hunted. They run dogs out there for bear and stuff like that, so they have the natural fear of people. Japan here is the same category. They hunt them. You've got the different indigenous people in northern Japan and central Japan that hunt them, that eat them, they use their furs. So that tells me they would have the natural fear of people at the same time.
Right.
But they don't, unless you have the super rare predatory bear or a sow and their cubs, you pretty much can go anywhere you want without any fear. I mean, you got to have your guard up. Don't get me wrong, because there are predatory or wounded bears. A lot of people don't realize that they get scared, and if they shoot a bear, they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. Well, you just want to shoot them. But now if you're being attacked, shoot them. But they also say if you shoot a bear, you better finish them off, because there's nothing worse than a wounded bear out there running around in the woods.
A wounded animal is worse than an aggressive, uninjured animal. I'll tell you that right now, because they're going to fight for everything they have to survive.
Or the next person they come up on, even though it may not be. It could be a week later, but they're still wounded. It could be a family out
Yep.
there walking the trails out there, and next thing you know, they're attacking because they become.
Yep. Now, let me ask you this. Let
Again,
me
we're
ask
getting
you
off
this,
subject
David.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I know there's a little bit of a delay. That's probably on my end because of the internet. But as far as environmental factors, I mean, we know that when there's a precursor to a earthquake or a volcanic eruption, bird life will flock and fly in certain directions and in circles, and certain other wildlife will give you signals and signs that it's going to happen. I wonder if maybe we're looking at possibly a large environmental catastrophe possibly happening in Japan.
Well, you never know. I mean, Japan has earthquakes all the time.
Right.
And when those tectonic plates get to shifting, we all know that tectonic plates, especially when they get to shifting, and depending on how bad it is, it will interfere with, like the magnetic pole. It gives off magnetism, so to speak, to where it will mess up birds flying. They don't know which way they're going for a short period of time until that activity calms down. Any other animals of sea life that relies upon the magnetic field to be able to go where they go, it messes them all up for a period of time based on how intense that activity is for that time. But again, it could be that because they have earthquakes all the time. We had the solar flares. We know that the magnetic poles are shifting as we speak. There's just a lot of factors in there that's compounding each other at the same time.
Right.
And could that be part of it? It very well could be.
Right.
And Japan, that could be a telltale sign again. See it again. That's why I want to go back and see if there was anything abnormal. The last time they had this frequency of attacks with bears, what happened during that year time frame? Was it solar activity? How many earthquakes did they have? Anything that would change the behavior of the bear or any other wildlife that was in that area?
Right. Now, often a lot of the human aggression, you being law enforcement background too, can attribute a lot of the aggressive and human nature has to do with full moons. So is it a lunar problem that's out of whack, causing migration issues and stuff like that? It's got to be something either correlated to the environment or to some kind of solar activity.
Well, we know that full moons, when we have full moons, it does affect the gravitational pull on the Earth for high tides and everything else. It does affect some animals and people when we have full moons because things just feel weird.
I'd be curious to see. I'd be curious to find out, David, if a lot of the aggressive encounters that we hear about, especially with hunters, if there was a full moon the night before or during the encounter. I'd be kind of curious to see if I could correlate that, because I know that when my interactions with Bigfoot in our area where I was growing up, on a full moon, you never really saw them out because they don't like it because it's so bright out. They could be spotted easier, like any predator. So they kind of wait for it to die down and become darker outside so they can hide better. But you never know. Maybe the lunar activity has got things really just discombobulated.
Yeah, I think it might be a combination of a lot of things. But again, I don't want to dismiss everything to being natural causes.
Right.
Or rely on everything having a natural explanation for it, because that's the default when you don't have an answer. You come up with something, either it didn't happen or you come up with something that's plausible that could be natural in nature, because we do know that things happen that's natural. But there's just elements that stick out that makes you think otherwise based on what transpired, when it transpired, how it transpired. why it transpired for things to be natural all the time. And the bear attacks are the prime example. I mean, you can't tell me that the authorities, based on any reports they've been getting, did not see this coming to where they should not have intervened in the meantime, before it got to the point that it had. Because a lot of lives have been lost, if that was the case, if they just totally blew off all the reports and sightings and encounters that people were having. So that, I mean, just like any other government, they're going to blow it off until they're basically their feet's held to the fire to try to do something. But why now? I mean, that's
exactly.
All of a sudden, to me, it's like a switch. Somebody hit a switch for the behaviors. 1 or 2 bears, I can see it. But you're talking a population of bears with 20,000 plus encounters just in this year alone with all of these attacks.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, something is awry. Yeah, something is definitely out of whack. You hear about all kinds of bizarre stuff happening nowadays, but you don't really, when you think about it, you don't really consider. I mean, as far as I go, I had no idea about these bear attacks until about a month ago, when I got notified by a very dear friend who lives in Japan, of attacks happening. And when I was told about it, I researched it, and this is a little over a month ago. And when I started researching it, I started finding out that it's, wait a minute, it's not just Japan. It's literally everywhere. It's in our oceans and everything. It's literally everywhere. So I said, you know what? We're going to start addressing this issue at least twice a month. We're going to address this issue, guys, and we're going to try to get to the root cause of this, whether it's environmental, whether it's, solar activity that's causing it, lunar activity, whether it's chemical into the equation of the environment, man-made disasters, natural possible disasters. We're going to see what we can figure out. And we're all going to put our thinking caps on. And in fact, I told David before he came on tonight, make sure you bring your A game, because with his investigative background and the way my brain works, we got to figure out something, because something is definitely going on. And I wouldn't be afraid to admit that there's probably a connection to the missing people phenomena too, in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's environmental or not, I just don't know. There's so many what ifs that are involved. So we all really need to put our thinking caps on, man, and just try to figure this out. If we can save one life, what's some tips you would give people to if they have a bear encounter, David?
Well, the way things are going, I don't know if any tips to do too much. But I mean, you just go basically by the rule of thumb. If you come upon a bear, one, you don't run.
Yeah, definitely don't run.
Just back away, make yourself try to look big, make a little bit of noise. Don't be aggressive in your noise making, because that could cause them to go on the defense.
Right. Always be on the lookout to see if it's a mother bear with cubs too, because mother bears are going to be more violent when cubs are around to protect them from human activity. So you got to keep that in mind. Also, I would highly recommend that if you go off by yourself or with your spouse or other half, take bear spray with you. Take some kind of a GPS device with you. Make sure you have a viable bright flashlight, one that strobes. There's even flashlights out there that they sell that have the 1,000,000-volt zapper on them, the stun gun on them. You have to think in advance, because if you're actually walking out in the wilderness, and either you're by yourself or with somebody else, you always have to think. Not only do we, as cryptid investigators and paranormal investigators, not only do we have to think and worry about those things, but you have the natural environment hazards too to worry about. And I always tell everybody, the main thing you want to be wary of is the natural dangers. Okay. Because a cryptid danger, they're a cryptid for a reason. Okay. They don't want to have an encounter. That's why they're called cryptids. Okay. They're not called bears. They're not called mountain lions. They're not called timber wolves. They're not called coyotes. We know these things exist, and we know the dangers that befall us when we encounter them in the wild. And it's best to be prepared for those types of encounters because it makes you more prepared for a cryptid encounter. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're not off base on any of that. The only thing I'm going to add to that is whatever tools you take, just know how to use them. Know their capabilities, know their pros and cons. Because, yes, if you're going to be out in the woods, regardless of where you're at, you should always, at least at the minimum, carry bear spray. It's not 100%, but it's still a tool. Most bear spray is only good. The spray is only good for roughly about 40 feet. A lot of people don't know that. So you don't want to be taking out bear spray because you see a bear and it's 50 yards away from it and you empty your can. That spray ain't going to get to the bear. Now, if the bear comes at you, you're out of bear spray. Learn how it works. The only time you really want to pull it and deploy it is if it's aggressive and it's coming towards you. But you got to wait for it to get within that distance before you pull that trigger. That's going to take.
Exactly.
Your adrenaline's going to be going.
And don't. Yeah. And one thing that a lot of people forget too, David, when it comes to bear spray and even mace, what's the worst thing you can do spraying mace? Spraying into the wind. Okay. You want to make sure that wind is at your back, spraying it forward. You want that wind to push the spray forward, not push it towards you. So you have to make sure that when you're handling bear mace, you have to be careful. You have to know how to use it.
You got to be aware of your surroundings because if the wind's in your face and you deploy it, and it's going to get you. And chances, there's going to be a good possibility, no matter where the wind is, once you deploy it, you're going to get some on you anyway, regardless.
Right.
Just by the mist and the vapor. But I'd rather
here's
have
a little
hint.
Here's a little hint. Here's a little hint to everybody. Yeah. Here's a little hint to everybody too, though. What I usually would do, and this is just a trick that I learned from being in the military, is I'll get like a little plastic bottle, like just to see through, like a 2-ounce bottle or a 3-ounce bottle, and I'll carry it with me in my pack. Okay. And what I do is I fill it up with a combination of whole milk and a combination of olive oil. Okay. Now, what those two things are going to do is they're going to neutralize anything that gets in your eyes. So if you do have chemical agents that, from mace or from bear spray that accidentally do get back onto you, into your eyes, and blinds you temporarily, take out that little bottle. It's like the size of a. I wish I had one here to show you guys. It's like an eyedropper bottle, okay, size, okay, like 2 ounces, and you take and you put that in your eyes with the milk, and it takes the burn and all that and aggressive nature out of the accelerant that is in the bear spray, okay. So it's just a way to neutralize it and to help you to recover faster, okay? But like David said, make sure you know how to use this stuff. You have to know how to use it. That's the only way you're going to be safe. Okay?
You have to practice with it. A lot of hikers, they'll take bear spray, and where they put them? They put them in their backpack. And they're going to do you a damn bit of good in your backpack. Because let me tell you something, people. You come across a sow that don't want you around her cubs, or a predatory bear or a wounded bear, or one that's got a kill and is eating it and is going to protect its kill. You've only got seconds to react. Exactly. You ain't going to be thinking about the wind. You ain't going to be thinking about, you're just going to have seconds. And then you got to let that aggression, that bear, get within 40 feet. You can deploy it at around 50 or 60 and let it run into the spray. Okay. That's a good technique because it's going to be going out while it's coming in. And by the spray gets plumes out enough, it's going to be coming into the spray. And keep your fingers crossed because bears are like people. About 10% of people, when we carried pepper spray in law enforcement, in the Army and civilian, there's about 10% of people out there it does not affect.
Right.
But you do not carry it based on that pretense. Assume it's going to work. It's better to have it than not have it.
It's better to have it. Yeah, it's like the presence of carrying a and I hate to say this, a prophylactic with you because it's better to have one and not need it than to need it and not have one. So
it's better to have more than one type of defense. I mean, if you're going to be out in nature, we go out daytime and we hike at nighttime. We do stakeouts at nighttime. But we got more than one thing for protection. We carry heavy duty knocking sticks that will break bone if it's something, other animals or whatnot you need to use it against. We carry bear spray. We do carry sidearms in case that comes about. Now, with that being said, if you're going out after night, you can have a flashlight in your hands, but I highly recommend you put a light on your hat. Because if you're out there after dark and you have to take some kind of defensive nature or posture, you don't want nothing in your hands except what you may have to defend yourself with. If you're holding a flashlight and you drop that flashlight, now you ain't got no light. Have a light on your hat. That way you can turn it on. Exactly. You've got the light to see where you're looking. You got your hands free to do whatever you need to do if you need to do anything. That's just one thing that I got myself into doing. I mean, I go out with guys and stuff, and they're carrying around flashlights in their hands. I tell you what, you drop that light because you're going for your weapon or your bear spray or you have to use two hands on your heavy duty walking stick. You drop that light, you can't see what you're doing. Have something on your head at nighttime. That way you don't worry about it, and then you got your hands free. Where you can either run or if you need to run based on what's going on or the case may be. And you come up with your own techniques on how you want to do things. Just be prepared, know how to use the stuff. Enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the nightlife when you go out. You can make a little bit of noise if you're in bear territory, because a lot of times when bear hear you, they're going to be scurrying away anyway. But if you're going to go out and be doing stakeouts or you want to see wildlife in the daytime and deer, keep in mind, most deer's not going to run when they see you. Not unless they're within maybe 20, 25 yards from you. You'll be able to see a lot of wildlife when you go out in the daytime, even if you do make a little bit of noise. And the thing about making a little bit of noise is for the ones that have the natural fear of human like bear do, especially if you're in bear hunting territory. Now, if you go out west to the Yukon and everything else, that's a whole different category there. A lot of people don't hunt bear. And what's bad about that is if you go out west, a lot of the national parks ban you carrying bear spray going on hikes. A lot of people don't know that.
Exactly.
You won't find me going to places like that where you got grizzly and big brown bear. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. One other thing too, like David mentioned earlier too, is whenever you're going out into an environment, if it's someplace you've never been before, do your research on that location before you step a foot out into the woods. Find out what rivers and streams are around there. If there's a cave system around there, if there's so many hollers, and any type of wildlife activity in that area. Do your research before you go out. That's another way to reassure that you don't have problems. But that being said, I want to thank everybody. Thank David for being here. He's going to come back on when we do the ocean one. We'll talk about the oceanic activity that's been spiking up. We'll get our heads together and we'll work on that. Please heed our advice. Don't go out alone, no matter what you're doing. People go missing alone, folks. And I don't want to see anybody in this family, in this chat, to be a statistic. Okay.
And if you do have to go out alone, let people know where you're going and what time you're going to be back.
Exactly.
That way, if you're not back at that certain time, they know they need to start making phone calls or to come look.
Exactly.
Because you can spray an ankle, anybody can get hurt while they're out there. I mean, that's common sense. If you're
Exactly.
going to go out in areas that's primitive, I'm not even going to say primitive. If you go out in any wooded area, once that night falls, everything changes.
Exactly.
The sky will start changing the stuff when you're looking off in the distance. Where you thought you may have come from ain't going to look the same when you turn around and go back. It ain't going to, even with the flashlight, it's going to look different.
Yep,
And
I agree.
If you carry a compass with GPS, know how to use them.
Exactly. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody. Please, if you can, check out Nate the Lawyer on YouTube. Send him a message of encouragement with his brain tumor that he has found out recently that he has. Keep him in your prayers.
Did you find out
anybody? Yeah, anybody that's it's called Nate the Lawyer. He's on YouTube. And
did you find out what stage it is?
I didn't get that in depth into it. My son actually follows him, and he was the one that told me. So I you guys know me well enough. You know that with what I've been through, and a lot of the battles I've had, I'm a real. If I can't help stomp out cancer and brain tumors and stuff, which is another environmental thing too, I believe, that causes the parasitic activity, but that's a whole nother, deep rabbit hole to get into, is the whole medical industry and health and everything. Maybe we'll try that sometime, but keep him in your prayers. Check him out, Nate the Lawyer. He's on YouTube. Give him some words of encouragement. Keep them in your prayers, and keep everybody in your prayers, because we're all going through this stuff together, And
just a real quick comment on what Joan is saying about smart with what I said about wearing the headlamp. Let me clarify one thing. After dark, I put a headlamp on my hat, but I don't use it. I use a regular flashlight. If a situation arises, then I turn on my headlamp, because I don't want to run that battery down in the meantime. You follow what I'm saying? I carry a flashlight when I'm going out and about, but I got that headlamp up there for that what if scenario. So if I got to ditch my handheld, I turn on my headlamp and then my hands are free. I'm not going to turn on my headlamp when that battery goes dead. And if it goes dead, now you're out of luck.
Yeah,
that's the last resort. Yeah,
I carry that flashlight that you got me, that really super bright one. But I always make sure I have a backup. Okay.
Yep.
The simple.
I carry 3 or 4 flashlights after dark.
I gotta have that. I always have a headlamp. Yeah. Yep, and I always have a headlamp. So, my backups have backups. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Headlamps are backup for the what if scenarios. So I don't want to run it down walking around.
Yep. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being in the chat. I'm trying to put up your comments and stuff. That being said, I want to thank David for his expertise and his knowledge. And at least with anything, we bring forth the information to help people not only have the knowledge of this is happening, but we also get the word out to be careful, and you never know what you're going to encounter. You never do. You can go out to a Bigfoot investigation, and you can come across a Loch Ness monster for all we know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you just don't know. Okay, you really don't. That being said, question everything, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, I got to.
God bless you guys. Stay safe. Stay strong. Stay faithful. And we will see you Friday night for Into the Red Rabbit Hole. That podcast is going to be about the automobile that ran on water and the mysterious sudden death of the inventor. So that being said, thank you guys. Thank you to the moderators in the chat. Thank you to David. And question everything, guys. We'll see you later, okay?
Yep. See y'all later. Thanks.
the mist we rise, a force unbroken, with banners high and hearts awoken. The sound of pipes, our war is calling. Like thunderous waves, our duty is falling. Stand tall, together we fight, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity our hearts shall sing, the legacy of warriors through every reign. With battle cries we forge our fate, in fields of valor we elevate. As shadows loom, our spirits plead. Brothers in arms, we are the tree. Fearless, we take the night, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity, our hearts shall sing, the legacy of warriors through every reign. As dawn breaks, we know our name.